Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well wherever you are in Middle-earth. Here we are, Episode 8 of Season 2 of Rings of Power, joined once more by my boy, Mr. Royan. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. But let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Here we go.
Let's put it to bed.
Yeah, then we have at least a 2-year break before the next season starts up, and we can enjoy some maybe better content. Here we go. So, overall, I feel like it was a little better than the last episode, right?
Not that was hard. Last 2 episodes.
I feel like for me, it'll be on par with episode 6, probably. Still pretty rough for me, but there are a couple moments that we'll get into. But let's start with the good. Ryan, what did you like?
Okay, so I gotta be fully clear and honest. When we have been hinting at the Balrog's return, and I imagine, can't speak for Yoyston completely here, but I'm willing to put money on the guess that he's not exactly been looking forward to the scenes. Neither have I. But when they came, the Balrog looked rad. And I understand that there's like this whole Tolkienian debate, wings, no wings, compromise, wings made out of smoke. I can dig it.
Yeah.
It looked really nice. It looked really cool. And even with the stuff that'll come in later, when I'm talking about the bad stuff, the scene was made by the astounding visual effects, which has been a long-running theme with this show. The effects, the costuming, the set designing, the general looking of the show has always been gorgeous, and this was no exception. I would like to specifically call out the last scene with all the elves in what will soon be named Imladris.
Yep.
Gorgeous set, honestly. Even the excuse me. Even the scenes that are not supposed to be like, oh, super gorgeous, pretty places. The scenes in places like Pelargir right now, parts of the Numenor, everything looks and feels not just good, but unique.
Yeah.
And I noticed that that's something that a lot of shows really struggle to pull up on. Even Game of Thrones, even in its prime, I think kind of struggled where you would be in a scene and you would have to wait to see a character to figure out where you were. That doesn't really happen with this show, and I think that that's really well done. I really appreciate that.
I will say that too. I mean, sometimes you have forests that look like other forests. Like, it kind of... It's funny because the story also reflects this of Rings of Power, right? They'll teleport from, like, south to north, and also the scenery looks alike too, because one time, right, the Numenorians, when they showed up in Pelargir this episode, I was like, okay... this next scene is Pelargir again, and then it was like Galadriel walking through the forest. I was like, oh, okay. Sometimes they look similar, but overall, I'd agree. Right? It's you can generally tell where you are, not when you are, but where you are.
And that goes into another thing with this. Like that's a negative. We'll talk about negatives later. We'll talk about negatives later. All right, man. It's difficult for me because I don't like any of the endings of any of the storylines.
We'll get there.
And so I can't be like, oh, this was a great scene because now we got to see the payoff. That's kind of been a big theme with us as we review or I guess with mostly me, especially early in the seasons. There's a lot of like, oh, we're interested to see where this goes. We're interested to see where this goes. Like, oh, this really took a stumble here with this really poor decision making, whether like lore related or not. But we'll have to see if they can recover from this. This is the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
We can guess at some of the things that we're going with, but we don't have a lot of bridges going into next season to be like, oh, I can't wait to wonder what's going to happen here. We know what's going to happen for the most part in almost all of the situations, and none of them I'm like super thrilled about. So that's kind of it for me. What about you, Yoyston?
Yeah, no, that's fair. In terms of good, again, looks have never been an issue. I like what you said with the Balrog, how looks like Durin's Bane. It looks like the Balrog we know. And like you said, even about the smoke, that's kind of how it's like that's why that wing debate exists, is because it's not smoke, it's shadow that in the book at least, but that kind of seems as if wings outstretch. And so the use of smoke as darkness against the fire, super good contrast, right? Again, visuals have never been the problem for this show. Like at most, if you were trying to be nitpicky, you could say some of it's like overproduced. You could almost say it's like you can tell you're looking at like a lot on screen at most. But again, it's a lot of beautiful stuff. Can't really complain about that. And it feels like a fantasy, feels like Middle Earth in that aspect of the visuals and the set pieces. Sometimes the costumes are there, sometimes they're not. I felt like this episode, actually, a lot of the costumes were there. But yeah, I'll say that was cool. Actually seeing, it's going to sound weird, but seeing Celebrimbor's torture, like seeing the fall of Aregion and as it was happening and them getting to Imladris it was closer to the book. So I have to give them credit for that, in that Elrond's forces were in the books. It was him and Celeborn were driven back to Rivendell, to what would become Rivendell at least. And so I'm like, yeah, we're not too far from that. The fall of Aregion, as Sauron looks for the Dwarven rings, the Elven ring, the Manish rings, right? The Elvish rings in the books were well beyond his grasp. We'll get into that nitpick. That's actually a problem that I have with how close one of the Elven rings was, and that he wasn't actually just vying for it right there.
He didn't care.
He didn't even care. But we'll get there. Adar turning into the elf, like he looked great as the elf. I was a little worried it would be like, Celeborn, you're back. I was so worried.
No, dude, there was a real moment there where she was like, "What was your name?" And I was like, "He's about to name drop like a real character, and I'm gonna get so mad."
Dude, I was like, he might say so. He might be like, "I was, Maglor, the son of Fëanor," or something like that. But I was so worried it'd be like Celeborn, and it's like, what? Like that ran through me. I was like, this will destroy this episode if that's Celeborn. And then he didn't even say it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Honestly, it kind of would have been interesting to see what they could have name dropped him as. I don't know. The last shot, like you mentioned, that was pretty sick. It looked like the Star Wars poster where Luke Skywalker's like holding up the lightsaber, right? Gil-galad holding up whatever sword that we've never seen him have before. That was awesome.
Not his sword.
Not his sword. That was all pretty sweet. And I think that's kind of where my good stuff for the episode really ends. Trying to think all the plot lines through really fast.
We have nothing good to say about the Stranger plotline.
Not really. I mean, you could give it credit that it was about saving his friends, not power, but I'm like, it just seems just so. We'll get there. It
seems so forced. All right.
Whatever. Yeah, it seems forced. Let me see. The dwarves, the kind of arm wrestling thing was a little sweet, but especially, I don't know. We'll get into the pacing of how all of this happened, and just this. We'll get into that. Some of that was sweet. If I'm trying to lend it some points.
It could have been. It certainly could have been, right? There's these moments where they are trying to make us feel a lot of things. I'm going into the bad stuff.
Yeah, all right, let's transition into the bad stuff. Let's go.
There's so many moments where we feel like clearly the show, and I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm jaded and unlikable. But like when there's these moments where it's like, oh, really, come on, audience, feel for the Durins and their lost relationship. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Durin's about to get eaten by a Balrog, and I don't care. Why don't I care? Because this dude was like a really nice guy 4 episodes ago and an evil guy 1 episode ago.
He wasn't even that nice 4 episodes ago. Like at the end of season 1, he still was pretty awful to Durin, the younger.
True.
During the 4th.
You're right.
So
but like,
I'm like,
relatively.
Yeah, whatever. Oh yeah.
I remember we talked about the Dwarven rings like a couple episodes ago. Either good episode. We were like, oh, we love this like slow play. This like we get to see, how it touches Durin's, like it kind of gets him a little bit more impulsive on the greedy side. It fully dropped like the act. There was no more subtlety.
Yep.
About as subtle as a bat with nails in it hitting you in the face. It's like
true.
The rings are so evil, so evil.
I mean, I would say, like, on one of my notes, I say, what happened to dwarves being, like, too resilient to be easily corrupted by the rings? Like,
what happened to dwarves having rings, bro? They all of them are in Khazad-dûm right now. All of them.
Yep.
Literally all of them.
Well, and they're about to do this, like, political nuance, I say with air quotes, thing next season. Well, the other dwarves are vying for power over Khazad-dûm. I'm like, okay, so you guys don't know what to do with Khazad-dûm is what you're telling me, because I was like, wow, okay.
Because the horse left the barn. You couldn't... There's nothing left here except for, like, potentially a long, drawn-out siege, Balrog versus Khazad-dûm miners, but, like...
We shouldn't see that. That, like...
Man, the pacing is... It could be good, and they just rushed it so hard.
Yeah.
This plot line, the Numenor plot line...
I was about to say, those two plot lines were the...
Part of the Elfin plotline, but the one that I thought that just absolutely just dropped like a rock was the Stranger plotline, believe it or not. Dragging all of its heels for every episode that it's been featured in up until 2 episodes ago, when was the last time we saw it, episode 6, pre-upped, ready to, they teed up a big battle and a big decision for totally not Gandalf. Actually, we lied, it's Gandalf. And this whole episode was just completely underwhelming. It's like Gandalf walks into the village and it's like, oh, it's been like burnt. It's like, is everybody dead already? Did they all die off screen? I was like, wow, that would be brave.
Yeah,
that's too brave
crazy.
For the show. And then it was like, oh no,
they're also good at
here's
hiding.
The dark wizard.
Yep.
And here's these henchmen that have been chasing us for the whole season. Oh, they're gone. All right. Anyways, back to the wizard. Oh, he's leaving now too. Oh, okay. Everything is okay.
Let me finish out some thoughts for Durin, because I want to get into the Gandalf one as well. But I feel like, why would anyone trust the line of Durin again? It's like, well, I mean, this like Balrog is now getting out.
Well, we don't know that. They caved in the tunnel, Yoist.
But
it's solved forever.
Gosh. Like you say, we should just end the Dwarven plotline in Khazad-dûm. They need to just, if they're going to do the Fall of Moria, don't drag it out. Give us the Fall of Moria. Like, it is...
Make that a season at this point. Like, its own season. Instead of, like, a quarter of this season.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, I don't love how they set up the Fall of Khazad-dûm, but it is what it is. Like, let's just keep it going. Right? Where, okay, the Balrog's out. Can't put the Balrog back in the can. He's out, right? Let's just do it then. And let's not have this, like, pseudo-political thing. It's okay for one of the plot lines to take a bit of a back seat. Because now it seems like Gandalf is probably going to travel west, and they're going to keep going with more Numenor and all this stuff. We don't need a ton of Khazad-dûm. Or you could have us, have one season where they're losing Khazad-dûm to the Balrog, and then eventually gets kicked out. I didn't want the Fall of Moria too early, because I have this note in here too. I wonder if Rings of Power is going to almost be remembered like some of the new Star Wars prequels that they were trying to do, like Solo, where it's like everything needs a backstory. Solo's blaster, how he got the name like Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon, like everything needs a backstory. And I feel like that's what they're going to do with Rings of Power, where it's like literally Gandalf's staff, probably his hat too at some point, is going to have a backstory. And it's like, okay, I don't love that because there's so much more to explore than the backstory to our current characters, but okay. Again, cat's out of the bag. You can't put it back in again. Let's just do Fall of Moria. Let's just see it happen. I think Durin jumping slow-mo into the Balrog is like so cheesy. And again, why would...
Exactly. And I can't make myself care about that scene, so it tanks the scene.
Exactly. Exactly. And it just, the slow-mo and everything, I'm like, why would anyone trust the line of Durin again? Again, they built up Khazad-dûm and all this kind of stuff, but then by himself, the king killed dwarves, got the Balrog released, and wore this ring, and was almost overthrown by his son. No one would ever trust that line of kings again. But eventually, of course, everybody's like, oh, yes, like, let's just keep following the tradition. No, like, this is horrible. So, again, I would say the dwarves were probably... The biggest letdown of the season in terms of like it started like it could have been really good. At parts it was good, and then it just kind of tanked in the end. The pacing, like you say, it's the pacing. How they it's just weird.
They had set up this stuff to be done with Durin the Third and all of these negotiations with other dwarves, handing them out the other rings. How about instead of like the greedy delving of Khazad-dûm being one episode long with one guy that did it. Remember, we talked about this last episode. It was like it's just one dude. Like it's just one guy, but
he's got like superhero powers and stuff. It's weird.
He's taking down walls all by himself. And I get it. Like they established that was a power of the ring, was him knowing exactly where to hit to break into the big caverns and stuff like that. But why? Why'd they need to do that? I feel like they could have like drawn out the plot line with the dwarves a lot more, really kind of leaned in more to the, especially if they're going to do it next season, lean in more to the other dwarves, not from Khazad-dûm. Why is it that the only time we're going to see outsider dwarves before they're like the plot is just that one episode with the emissaries greedily reaching for the rings?
Right.
Like, come on.
I mean, we've been introduced now to the dwarves of the Blue Mountains. Like, after the fall of Moria, they're going to go to Erebor. We should start hearing a bit about Erebor, the Lonely Mountain. They should start setting that up, just so it's not all of a sudden, look, guys, it's the Lonely Mountain from that one really cool book, The Hobbit, written by J.R.R. Tolkien. Like, like it feels... We'll get into the references in a second, because, oh my gosh, they actually got one extremely wrong, which was kind of funny. But we'll get there in a second. Like, they just like to reference things without building them up. I mean, Narsil was another example of that. Get there in a moment, too. But, yeah, I would say the dwarves, meh. To defend how it's done in the books, but not in the show, the reason why they would keep trusting the line of Durin in the books after Balrog is it's like, every dwarf was greedy, right? And it was like, yeah, he kept pushing for more mining eventually, Durin the Sixth, who lost Moria. He was pushing for more mining and all this kind of stuff, but they kind of all were. And then he died, his son Nain died, and then his grandson would lead them out of Moria. So it was like they were all kind of suffering together. But this, it's like you could solely blame the Balrog coming out on Durin the Third, like entirely, completely on him.
It's completely his fault.
Yeah, but I think what they're gonna do is probably just be like, we're not doing the Fall of Moria, at least not yet, not right now. But the Balrog is there. So they're probably just... But again, how would dwarves ever forget that the Balrog is there? And how would the Balrog ever forget that the dwarves are there? I don't know. This is problematic going forward, because are they really not going to deal with that Balrog thing? Just bury it. It's fine.
The most interesting character in this dwarf storyline is the Balrog, right? We had four named dwarves, and one of them died. So now we've just got Durin, Disa, and
Narvi. Yep. And now it's going to be some political thing, which we don't need. Which we just don't need. The dwarves aren't really like that.
It's kind of just a total flop. Yeah. And from this whole plot line, it could have been good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And now they're going to try to do something else, and I can't buy into it at all.
And when we do our full season review here in a couple days, well, I'll shout that out at the end as well, but we're going to do a live stream full season review on this Sunday. Is that October 6th? Yep, October 6th. It'll be about 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tune in for that. We're going to go into the full plot line for every plot line. But yeah, I would say ending of it was weak. So let's move on to, so we mentioned Gandalf being next and all that stuff.
Want to do Stranger?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. All the leaks that I've heard about the season, all of them were all true. Literally every single one was true.
Yeah.
And so I kind of knew that Grand Elf was coming. I knew that the staff picking up was coming. I was, told about this weeks and weeks ago. And then, when it happened, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh, this is going to be...
When you were told weeks and weeks ago, and they're like, they made a note, like, oh, he's going to pick up his staff. Were you like, why was that an important thing that you needed to tell me?
Yeah, the person that told me about it was like, it was just like, okay, it was just kind of whatever. Like, not a huge moment, honestly.
Not a huge moment for literally like the entire plot of the season. It's how stupid this plot was.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, again, this is where, yes, season 1 was a rough foundation, but literally season 2, They could have cut some of the Stranger's plot, have him go west instead of east. I don't know. They could have made Rune a lot shorter and then gotten him to Círdan by the end of this season if they really wanted to, and then have the same Gandalf reveal. Here, take this ring of fire. Like, they could have sped his up, and I would have been all the happier for it. Sauron, if that is Sauron, it's still kind of left a little ambiguous, but I'm just like how we thought at this time 2 years ago with the ending of the last season that we kind of knew it was going to be Gandalf. Kind of know this guy's got to be Sauron. We kind of, he kind of speaks like him. He kind of, my friend, and then he does all this stuff. I don't know how he's going to convince Gandalf to ever trust him again after what he did, though, to the Harfoots. And, like, I think, dude, one got smashed by a boulder. Unless I saw something, one got literally smashed.
Sauron's a war criminal right now.
Sauron or Saruman?
Saruman.
Oh, okay.
Saruman's a war criminal right now. Like, just dropping
they both are,
these civilian casualties just to make Gandalf mad. Like, that's all. It was just spite.
Yeah.
And like, leading up to the scene, he's like, oh, Manwë told me you would come. I was like, dude, be so real. Like, are you telling me right now that this is the guy that Manwë's talking to right now?
Yeah, right.
Come on.
And it could be more deception and stuff, but again, it's kind of like the Halbrand problem that we foresaw for this season, which, granted, they were able to kind of get around, but like, how does anyone ever trust this guy? How is anyone ever deceived by this guy and his evil nature, like, ever again? Because he seems so overtly evil.
Yeah, he's like, and it's not like they were fooled by it at literally any point. He started talking to them, and they literally never bought a word he was saying. Right from the start, from the first moment he was on screen. Yeah, he was talking, and no one was listening. And true. So, like, how are we supposed to? It just doesn't make sense, man. It doesn't make sense.
So many things don't. And again, like, this plotline by itself, with the Harfoots, with Tom Bombadil being all serious and everything, like, it just dragged the entire show down. It literally took points away. Every time they're on screen, I can at least take away 2 points from that episode review, because it's just so bad. It's kind of impressive how bad it is. It's boring, it's contrived, it's forced, and it's like, and it's like cut short almost. Yeah. It feels like it's so like it's that, it's like needle threading, just ultra high purity stiletto blade that goes just rides that needle's edge between being dragging, boring, and also too fast. Like, this whole plotline just sped up crazy in the last 2 episodes and still landed nowhere. It is the epitome of something I said a couple episodes ago that I say again in my notes here. This show simultaneously does way too much and way too little. Like, not enough and way too much. Just because, like, yeah, you're right. I mean, how many hours now have we had with the Harfoots and with Gandalf? So many. Yet it feels like not enough, but also way too much, because I just don't really know these characters that well. I don't care about them. They're so one-dimensional. Like, Poppy or whatever was talking... Nori was talking about how... I still get their names confused. How they weren't too dissimilar. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, both you guys have this cadence of being boring. that I don't know where that comes from, because again, it's not Gandalf. Gandalf is one of, if not like the most interesting wizard in fiction, based on his sage wisdom, his connection with gods, his connection with, or the Valar, and connection with the different peoples of Middle-earth, and how all of them kind of know him, but know him a little differently. How people in Gondor call him Mithrandir, and how the elves kind of call him that. But in Rohan, he's known as like Gandalf, or, like, they all kind of know him differently. And so it's just...
and he's both incredibly involved, but not overt.
Exactly. And he's such an interesting character, but not in this show.
No, he's very, like... This is a big theme in this episode, particularly, where every hero from every plotline has taken the moment to, like, try to instill a lesson, right, that they've learned, right? And they usually do it to another character in a somewhat condescending manner. With, like, Nori talking to Saruman about
right,
about, like all of that, with Galadriel talking to like the elves, and then Adar, and then Sauron. It's like all of these things. I was like, man, you guys, I feel like you decided that you needed to write a story, like you needed to write up to this moment, and you never did. Like none of these characters have shown any growth throughout this. the most changing character this season was Celebrimbor and Sauron.
True.
Like, everyone else is basically the exact same from when we started, and yet they're like sitting here imparting great lessons on us that they've learned throughout this journey. I'm like, what journey did you go on? Galadriel is somehow both been humbled in literally every scene she's ever been in, but also still when she talks when she's talking to Sauron and like talking smack to him, I'm like, where did you learn this? Like,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are things like that too, where I'm like, I mean, even speaking of Gandalf, does he know elves? Does he know what an elf is? They called him an elf and all that. And I'm like, wait, if he has memory loss because he doesn't remember Simon Valinor, but he doesn't know what an elf is? What? The writing.
He knows halflings,
yeah,
and he knows people, and all the people he's met, all the like human tall people, all of them have been evil. There was the witch ladies, there was the masked like Easterlings, and then there was Saruman. Everyone else has been a halfling, except for Tom. Forgot about Tom.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever Tom is, but again, in this version, he's just like a very.
He's just a dude. He's just some guy.
Yeah, he's just some guy. He's just some serious guy. Not at all like he is in the books. He sings, but I don't know. Like,
oh, speaking of singing, how about the lyrics of that song? Like, why is this in the show? You're talking about a Tom Bombadil that does not exist.
Yeah.
You're talking about a river that's not here. You're talking about yellow boots and a blue coat that I don't see.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I'm just so out of energy after this episode, after this season. Like, and it's just stuff like this. It just makes no sense. I feel like whatever with this plot line. We are putting more thought into it than I feel like the showrunners and the writers did. Like, it's just so I'm just so apathetic about it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, we can move on too if you're all right with that. Because again, I'm just
let's go to Numenor.
Whatever.
Let's go to Numenor.
Actually, let's go to Pelargir first, if that works. Then we'll go to
I count that as
part of Numenor. Yeah, like Isildur and Theo being buddies now. I'm like, what? Like, speaking of Numenor's plotline having weird pacing, dude, this is so weird. Like, he saved you once, and then he gave you a bit of like kind of not great advice. Oh, I was not good at bearing it, but now I am good at bearing my pain. Oh, thanks, Isildur. Cool. Thanks, buddy. Here's a hug. Like, we're buddies now. We're bros. And then Pelargir is now being taken by Kingsmen instead of Faithful, which is I find interesting. Pelargir was like the port of the Faithful in the books, with Umbar being the port of the Kingsmen, but I guess we're just doing it all here. Okay.
Nah, the Faithful like almost don't exist at this point.
Yeah, they've not had any time, and with the Isle of Numenor, with Elendil, like he hasn't been given any. Apparently, he is a lord in this, and it's like go reclaim your lordship. I'm like, what? Why was he a captain? And maybe I missed something somewhere in this season or season 1 where he gave up his lordship to come be just like some captain for the queen. And then Narsil, man.
I think that's related to him giving up being a captain. I think he was a captain and a lord, and then the Kingsmen made him give up being a captain, and therefore also his lordship. I don't really understand. They have not described what a lord is in Numenor.
Yeah.
If you are a Numenorean, you basically have 3 ranks. You are either a soldier, you are a random citizen that sometimes gets to go into the big hall with all the, nicely dressed people, or you are in charge.
True.
And that's it, kind of
That's it.
Like...
yeah, it's so true. And it's like, the thing is Elendil is of the royal line. He's related to Tarmiriel. He's like her distant cousin, but still related to the royal line. And so they should be treated with that kind of royal respect to some degree. Especially Ar-Pharazôn should see him not as just like this pushover, but as kind of like okay, he is clearly my biggest threat. And also, like, he has a claim to the throne. He has a following, and they see things very differently than I do. Very pro-elf, very pro-Valar, very anti, like, Numenorean superiority and supremacy. Like, it needs to be a little bit more even playing field. Yes, Elendil should be on the back heel here, politically. Like, he should be on the weaker side, but still, it's, I don't know. And so Narsil, I knew eventually he was going to get it. I didn't know how, but we saw it in season 1. I didn't know if, like, his daughter would give it to him, or, like, his son, and maybe Anarion would bring it out. Maybe he would just go up there. Maybe Tarmiriel would give it to him. And yeah, Tarmiriel kind of did give it to him, but, like, hey, see that sword that's just leaning on the wall?
No explanation for, like, what it means.
Yeah, that sword leaning on the wall. It is yours. Become who you were born to be. And then he unleashes the sword, and I'm like, man, you guys just are bad at this. This show is so... They're just copying things right out of... They're trying to make it like poetry where it rhymes, as George Lucas would say. Where it's like, wow, he took out the sword. Oh, that reminds me of Aragorn taking out Andúril. Oh, look at that. And I'm just like, no, it doesn't feel like that at all. Like, it feels like you're just copying some of the best, most notable, memorable moments from Peter Jackson's films that were earned in those films. But this one, it's like, that sword, Narsil, it's yours. Reclaim your legendariness. Okay, boom. All right, I'm now going to be a king at some point. Like, what? Where was the buildup? Where was the pacing? Numenor also didn't have any. It didn't have an appropriate amount of time. I mean, like you said, there's really no faithful in this show that much because they just have gotten screwed over. We've kind of jumped past the point of, like, the tension and all this kind of stuff. I imagine when the Numenorians arrive to fight against Sauron, it's purely to capture Sauron, not to help the elves, like it was in the book. And I'm like, that sucks that we don't have any elven Numenorian, like, friendship, really, other than what we got in season 1, I guess. Because now the Numenorians are all anti-elf, I guess. If we're
Did
going...
we get friendship in season 1?
It was just when the Numenorians arrived to help Galadriel and Arondir, I guess. That was it. When they had that charge.
But even then, they were kind of making it more about, like, the Southlanders and Halbrand.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of just tossed at this point. It's I don't know. I really feel like this season, especially with the Numenorian, we've been saying it all season. This all episode we've been talking about how these plot lines have felt rushed and contrived, but none of them as bad as the Numenorian plotline. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they had an initial plan that didn't work, and so now they're pivoting, or if this was always the plan. But it feels like every time we go back, it should have been like, oh, and many decades passed.
Right. Yeah.
Between these two moments. And it's like,
same
whoa.
characters are there, but they've had an age worth of character progression or regression or just hanging out for some of them. But things have changed quite rapidly in the end. Like, I don't know, we saw that smoke rising from Armenelos, the city of Numenor, if that's what the show calls it, at least, but the capital of Numenor. And I'm like, is that smoke rising from the human sacrifice temple? Or have we not gotten there yet? I don't think we've gotten there yet, but with the show, you never know.
But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if next episode is suddenly like, oh, just walk in here. Oh, we're doing this now.
Yeah, who's this dude? Like, oh, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk. I'm gonna want to talk more about this, but while we're on Numenor, I really feel like a huge ball was dropped as it relates to Sauron, right?
Yeah,
because we got to see a version of Sauron taking over a civilization by working through its leader already in the show.
Yeah. Which
is kind of his whole purpose when it comes to Numenor. And so now I'm like, are they just going to do it again?
Yeah.
I don't really know what they're going to do. And if they are going to do it again, how is that going to land? How is it not going to be just Ar-Pharazôn equals Celebrimbor part 2?
True. I mean, especially because they're already just pretty evil. They are. It's so hard because I feel like we have so many hours of the show and just nothing happens. So I don't know if they're just saying, hey, the elves are evil. Straight up. I think they are, because I feel like they're very anti-Galadriel, and like, hey, the elves are taking up with like Sauron and stuff is kind of what they were hinting at in this episode. And they're hanging up those notices. So I'm like, yes, they're very anti-elf, I guess anti-Valar, right? Maybe not yet, because they're saying that the Valar were manipulated into saving Tarmiriel because of that connection with Sauron. And that was all just thrust on us. And I'm like, this...
In one scene.
In one scene.
in one montage scene.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, there were quite a few, like, there was at least that montage, but there were a couple like voiceover montages too in this episode, and I'm just like, man, we are just speeding
this episode
things
has
along.
Some really jarring cuts too.
Yeah.
I did write a note down where it's like, this show is anti people traveling into places. Nobody walks into a room in this show. We just hard cut to in the room with everybody already there.
But then nothing happens.
And we just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Back to forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Like you would think, because that's kind of what Game of Thrones did in the last two seasons, right? They just kind of, here's information, next scene, here's information. But in this one, they do that, but not much is happening in the information. I still feel like we're moving at just a snail's pace, but also way too fast, if that makes sense. Too much and too little.
I think... Yeah, I don't know. There doesn't seem to... There's a lot of talking about doing things, especially with Numenor, and a lot of just, like, immediate cut to the result. Not actually showing the actions, per se. The most actions we got in this Numenor was just a bunch of guards walking through the streets, putting on notices and grabbing people in rude fashions. That was kind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. The Numenor plotline, I think, has been kind of weird since the start. It almost felt like it was still one of the better ones last season.
And I would even
this season,
yeah, I mean, I would even say it's still one of the better ones this season, simply because of episode 5, where you actually felt like you were taking time with Elendil. You got to know his relationship with at least one of his men, Valandil, and you kind of got to see them participate in a ritual where they're mourning their dead. And I'm like, it felt like things actually happened in that episode with Numenor, and then you had that fight in the holy place, where Ar-Pharazôn's kid, whatever his name is, almost got killed, and then, like, it actually felt like some stuff was going on, but now it just feels like we're rehashing, Elendil's in bondage, now he's not, but they're still looking for him, and nope, they're going to arrest him again, and his daughter is switching sides now for some reason, because it's just a hair too far, but we don't see that character growth. Like, was that from the conversation in the jail, that she now feels like she wants to help her father instead of persecute him? I have no idea. Isildur is not given much to do,
Isildur is not given much to do, but just make out with this girl, I guess. Another relationship that's been, like, thrust upon us that I don't care about.
And also, it's such a weird thing, because I'm like, you guys were kissing and stuff, and then she was holding hands with that other guy, her actual husband, I guess, while he was sailing back to Numenor?
I think betrothed is the right term for those two,
okay.
But still. But it was weird. It was like, and he laid the keystone, and he told me, like, he'll love me forever, and it just made me sick to my stomach, so I ran to you, Isildur, and now we're making out. But I didn't break up with him or anything. So, bye.
See ya, man. Yeah.
And then he's talking to us like, how about you got room for one more? And he, like, gestures to the girl while the dude is standing right there. And it's like, I straight up thought he was going to go and fight Isildur, but no, he just stood next to her and held hand. And I'm like, honestly, that's kind of real. Like, if that happened to me, I would be like, did I just hear that right? Like,
yeah.
What did he say? Babe, what did he say? Like, what's going on? I would also be incredibly confused.
Yeah. That's why, okay. I was trying to, figure out, because we'd only seen this guy once, and he, like, walked up, like, why are you taking her? I guess I didn't put that together in the episode. I was like, this guy's about to have Isildur's back with the Numenorians, is what I thought at first. But yeah, no, you're totally right. He's like, what? Why are you taking her? What did you say?
He's like, what? Oh my gosh. Oh, it's so funny. Man. Let's talk about elves. Huh?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. So two characters.
Elves and Uruks, please.
Yeah, two characters that should be dead. Galadriel and Arondir.
Yo, don't say that about my boy Arondir, but you're absolutely right. That man died last episode.
I love that he's just, like, walking around nonchalant.
Just fine. He's It's just okay, guys. Don't worry about it. Why bother, right? Why bother with the dramatic scene and the sad music and the slow motion and like the gut wrenching sound of the knife entering his chest? If just in this next episode he's like being captured by orcs, he's not even bleeding, bro.
Dude, he's fine.
Like that. But he's just built better, bro. A Rontier is made of sterner stuff.
Well, and it's crazy too because I'm gonna actually go back and check this right now at the end of episode 7. But didn't he get stabbed by the same Morgul blade that was like
a Dar?
Yeah, by a Morgul blade that was killing Galadriel.
It wasn't the Morgul blade that was killing Galadriel. It was Morgoth's crown.
Oh, that's right. Okay, it wasn't the blade. It was the... Okay. I was like, that's good to know. It's a Morgul blade. It's the crown that was doing it.
I don't think it is a Morgul blade.
I think you're right.
It's like
I didn't
know Morgul blade. I don't know. It doesn't. At this point, the show, I could totally see them making it a Morgul blade next season and not like thinking about the consequences of other people getting cut by it earlier.
Yeah.
What that means or anything like that. They'll just say Morgul blade because they played it in the movies.
Yeah.
Regardless, like this.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
she's
the best scene. The best scene when it comes to elves. You are absolutely right. Celebrimbor getting got.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, these cowards. Dismember him. Mount him on that spear. Do it.
It was gruesome still, and like
not enough.
I would agree in terms of the lore. It still wasn't enough. I get it though. Like for me, and seeing it on screen is going to be different than reading it in a book. So I get it, but like, yeah, it is way worse in the book. So
it's like, but also in the same episode we see the scene. In the same episode, we see Adar stabbed like 45 times on the ground. Just
true. He got Julius Caesared, bro.
Where's the line, guys? Like, are we Jon Snowing people? Then why can't we be mounted torsos on banners? Like, come on.
Yeah.
And can you imagine how like so much of the show has been about shock value, right? Like, oh, all these kisses and all of these like.
Yeah.
These scenes, and it's like, oh, Adar turning and facing the screen with like, you know, an elf face. It's like, oh, shock value, but also like, come on, guys, like
that's all we got.
Such an easy layup to just mutilate this man.
Yeah,
they didn't do it.
It's true. And speaking of Celebrimbor's death, so that reference that I said earlier that they got so wrong, he said, oh man, it was so funny, and only the deepest of deep lore nerds would probably see this issue. He said, I won't be here. I'll be at the shores of morning. And I was like, the shores of the morning are in the far east. You're telling me you're going to send your soul to not to Valinor in the west. You're going to go
the wrong way, guys.
Oh,
you went the wrong way.
You mean the shores of like the dusk, right? Because if you look, the gates of morning are in the far east of Middle Earth, and the gates of night are in the west, right? The uttermost west. Because
sun rises in the east.
Yep.
Sets in the west.
The door.
Whoops.
The door of night or the door of morning. Yeah, right. So I'm like, because that's why Valinor is right. Like it has all of these kinds of, I guess, comparisons and metaphors, right? Because yeah, exactly. It's following the sun. So I'm like, okay, he's going to the far east. Okay, that's cool. That's where he ends up, eh? Okay. No, it was a slip up because obviously they meant the shores of probably Eldamar, I suppose, in Valinor. But come on. So, all right. Anyway, that's just a deep lore thing where I'm just like, again, easy layup to actually to do that.
One Google.
Yeah.
Tolkien Gateway.
Exactly.
Send them the link. Let your local writer know that there is an easy source, easy to read. They don't have to actually read the book. They could just read this page and they'd get most of the way there. But still, no.
Exactly. And I mean, even in Lord of the Rings, that's why it's called Minas Anor, right? Minas Tirith is the Tower of the Setting Sun, and then Minas Ithil is the Tower of the Rising Moon. And it's following the time. Okay, but whatever. That's too much research, I guess, for these guys. But it is funny because it's so. I wrote it down. I was like, it's so emblematic of what this show is. is it's a lot of just random stuff piled together, trying to stitch it into the lore with some deep lore lookups, some deep lore Google searches. But the thing is, you got to check your work. You got to actually read the books and maybe enjoy the books. So it was dumb. But moving on from that, Galadriel and Adar, Royan. Adar dying. Did that feel pointless?
Completely. Also, the scene before this, also pointless. Galadriel now shows up. She's like, listen, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna save.
I'll do it. I'll surrender now. And he's like, you literally don't even have this ring that I got right here.
Yeah.
Anyways, here's my tragic backstory. By the way, I don't know if I told this to you. Oh wait, I did. Oh well.
She was gonna give him the
I'm gonna die now.
Yeah, and she was gonna give him the 9 rings without knowing what they were gonna do. But again, you could have saved all of this if you had just worked with Adar from the beginning, I guess, and just. I mean,
but she didn't have the ring in the beginning because Elrond did. But still,
she could have been like.
I feel like you could explain that and be like, all right, listen, right? Elrond's probably coming. I'll have a chat with him.
Exactly.
All right, we'll work something out. All right.
Exactly. No. It's just so that was dumb. But also Adar. So Adar dying. I was like, what is the point of that character? He was trying to save the orcs.
He just got Sauron an army, I guess. And that's it.
And we didn't even see him get the army. It's crazy too. It just all happened off screen for, like you said, shock value. We didn't even, all this time I was like, he's probably going to create the One Ring and figure out how to dominate the minds of the orcs and all this stuff. No, he just does a little spell.
He just talked to him.
Yeah.
he just talked to him and they gave up. And then he kills Adar, right? Actually, he doesn't. He gets all the orcs to kill Adar for him.
Yep.
And presumably, like, the motivation behind these orcs, because it doesn't look like he's mind controlling them, even though we've established that he can. It seems like their motivation has been that Adar, like, spends orc lives too cheaply. During the Battle of Eregion, there's that one orc who's, like, watching this happen and being like, wait, this is literally what we're not supposed to be doing. And then in the same episode, we see Sauron just stab an orc because he's grumpy, and all the other ones just like, man,
this guy's mean.
Don't want to be that guy.
and it's so funny because I was about to say, okay, like, if Sauron has all this power, Adar, he must have let Adar kill him in episode 1 of season 2. He must have let that happen. But like he says to Galadriel, you give me too much credit. I didn't see all of this happening. So I'm like, you did let Adar kill you, though, because you're that powerful enough to change literally every orc to your side off screen. You're so that powerful, but you didn't see this guy who was evidently not happy with you going to kill you, and all the orcs come and stab you and stuff. You weren't going to see that, like, mutiny coming? What?
Also, remember last episode when he mind controlled those 6 elf, like, soldiers into killing each other?
Yeah.
Where was that? All right. It's like, you said during that review, it's like, oh, he's like a master swordsman. Like, he could totally we could have a scene of him, like, totally kicking their butts around. No, we had to save that for when he's toying with Galadriel, and then he gives up and tries to mind control her. Like,
oh my god!
A lot of things feel pointless. Top pointless character, Gil-galad.
he's so
my
trash,
boy
man.
Has spent 2 seasons being just the worst, and then one scene of him trying to be cool and save Galadriel, failing. So Elrond has to come in and do it, and then And then when she actually wakes up, laying at Gil-galad's feet, he always knows the worst possible thing to do. And imagine just being a woman, waking up like that after such a traumatic experience, and then you just got Gil-galad standing there insulting you.
Yeah, being like, dude, you need to shut up more.
While you're sleeping on the ground.
Yeah, it's like, man.
Dude, shut up.
I loved when you were asleep and you didn't annoy me, Galadriel. Dude, funniest shot of and it's so bad, but, like, funniest shot of the whole episode, when Galadriel, like, jumps off with Nenya. Dude, it pans to Gil-galad a little bit, and he, like, smiles at watching her fall to her death. And I'm like, whoa.
No, the best shot of the episode was when Adar was getting got by all his orcs, and Sauron kind of, like, walks up And then it cuts to Galadriel, and she's like so confused and agitated. She honestly looks like she's tweaking. Dude, that's gonna be a meme.
Oh, 100%.
It's like looks like both her eyes are going in the wrong direction. One's trying to look at Adar, the other one's trying to look at Sauron. Her face is so bemused.
Dude, and so some things, and I will give the show this. I was like, how is Galadriel not dead when she jumps off the side? Because maybe rings take away fall damage, but again, I'll let Rings of Power slide on this because Gandalf literally falls down from the Bridge of Khazad-dûm all the way to the Foundations of Stone there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll give you that. Fair enough. Maybe rings take away fall damage, but I don't know, man.
Or maybe just being a Maiar.
She's not, though. She's just an elf.
I know, but
with Gandalf.
But Gandalf and the Balrog are
right,
and so they get to survive the fall damage and then fight all the way back up.
But yeah. And then worst line of the season also goes to this exact moment. Worst line of last season. I'm good. It was literally stated by Gandalf, the stranger at the time, when he fought off those cultists. I'm good. Never forget. This one of this season, the MVP worst line. Heal yourself. Boom. Jumps off cliff. So bad. What?
And the lines before this, she was doing this, like I was saying earlier, kind of unearned soliloquy about all of these lessons about how she's learned and she's better than you, Sauron. She's learned, and then it's just heal yourself. Jumps off.
Yeah.
I will credit where credit's due. The sword fight was good. It was cool. Yeah. It felt, but it didn't feel like there were stakes to it because it was very obvious that Sauron was not taking it seriously.
Right.
He kept blocking her with the crown so that we could get that cool moment. And instead of actually using the crown, because he caught it in the perfect way, he could just use it to disarm her. He just kept giving it back. Yep. He's just giving it up.
And then when he stabbed her with it, I was like, you are so dead. You are you're done, Galadriel. Nope, walk it off, man. At least one, maybe two parts of the crown inside of her, just boom. And I'm like, all right, yeah, your ring is obviously going to save you. But no, it was Elrond wearing her ring that saved her. What? I was like, okay, you're going to put the ring on her and she's going to heal from it. And maybe that's the reason she has to keep it on now, is maybe those wounds will return. Kind of like Adar was saying with his wounds. Maybe that would actually build consistency within their writing. It's if she had to wear it because now that's the thing saving her life. And maybe that's why she would eventually have to leave for Valinor, is for healing, because the ring no longer has any power after the destruction of the One Ring. Literally, you could have just done that. But okay. Whatever. That's too much internal writing sense. It's no, let's just have Elrond have an arc where he has to learn, maybe these rings are good. I'm going to wear it. No, or you could line up literally your internal writing by making her now wear the ring and say you can't take it off anymore. Otherwise, that wound is going to come back. Okay.
But she's got to. She has to for the plot later.
Yeah. Yeah. She has to wear it, you mean?
She has to take it off.
For what?
When the One Ring gets made.
Maybe. Based on this show, she might not, though. Again, you're using book lore. I'm using their lore.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I've made that mistake all season. How dare I reference the books that they claim they're using?
And they keep referencing.
That they called him the Lord of the Rings. That sounds like a good book title, man.
Also, that scene at the end with Sauron just holding what was already Feanor's hammer, but is also been damaged because it's missing a jewel. It was a whole. I was just what's the point?
I don't know.
Sauron has nothing to do with that man.
He's so sad though that his boy Celebrimbor's gone. It looks like, because he was crying when he took him down, when he stabbed him with the spear. He was crying and stuff, and I'm like, dude, what is Sauron in this show?
What's your point?
Yeah,
man? Who are you?
So in The Lord of the Rings, Sauron works so well as a menacing figure that you know and have heard the tales about that you don't want to see coming back. And it's funny because I've wondered this about Sauron. Is he like Chekhov's gun that never goes off, right? This whole idea that if there's a gun on the wall in Act 1, it has to be used in Act 2, that kind of thing. And is Sauron in Lord of the Rings breaking that rule? I don't think so, because we do see him in other stories. We do see how powerful and how terrible he is. And so we don't necessarily need to see the gun fired again. We don't need to see him get the ring back. Like the book teases might happen as it goes along the way. Tales of his evil and of his power, they do the trick enough. So you don't need to go into how powerful is Sauron, how magical is Sauron in these stories, but then when you use his magic on and off, and when you say, oh, he's emotional that Celebrimbor's dead, but then he's shooting him, like torturing him with arrows right before that, I'm like, he's just so, even Sauron, who's probably the MVP of this season, as just an interesting character, is still so inconsistent, so weird to watch. Yeah, so I don't know. The dwarves coming down, they were in that scene, right, when they finally showed up. Dude, they really just showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, everybody got into position before we sounded the horn from outside of the city.
Yep.
Also, like, I love the and not to go back to the Dwarven plotline and rag on it a little bit more, but I'm going to do that.
You do it, Ryan.
I love how at the end of last episode, right, the whole point why the dwarves did not come, they couldn't get there in time, was because Durin was like, he needed to go back and try to confront his father, right? And I just love the image of, because he didn't bring them.
Yep.
He heard that the king slayed a whole bunch of guys, and he still went into the tunnel alone. So they're all just standing out there waiting. They're waiting because, and they're waiting. He didn't send them on ahead because when Narvi gets there, he's like, the king is in mourning, which means that they all know that the king has died, and Durin came back and then sent them off without him. And so that's why they're late. My bad. And I'm still not coming. Yeah, I'm going to send these guys without me.
Oh, so that
I can have the king is in mourning scene. Also, last thing, with the exception of the dwarves showing up in the 11th hour, ex machina this whole thing, making it all feel like it was worthless. The entire dwarven plotline was a cold opener.
True. True.
Like, that's how both, like, short it was, this climactic finale, and like rushed, where it was like they didn't even know how to work it in with the rest of the episode. So they just tossed it all up the front, and they were like, all right, we're done.
This is the thing.
It all happened before, for those that don't know what that means, it all happened before the title drop.
Right. It's just how they have too many plot lines and they don't know what to do with them, and they don't know how to stitch them together. This is what I mean, is we don't need every plot line that we have in this show. We just don't. If they got rid of one, maybe two of them, I would say with the Harfoots, it looks like the Harfoots are exiting the show. It looks like
you thought that last time.
I did think that last time, though. So we'll see. But maybe they know, like, hey, this is our worst plot line. So maybe we just have Gandalf coming in with the Elven plot line and we're good. Which is probably what I would do at this point. Just send him to Círdan, who's just hanging out with his ring, and then get that ring in Gandalf's hands, and we're good. Just do that. Take away that plot line. Theo and the Low Men, right, as they were name dropped a lot in this episode. I always thought they were middlemen, but they, I guess, are I guess they're from the Far East, so I suppose that makes sense. Them with the Low Men, I think they're going to kind of drop that plot line for now. They're definitely going to come back to it.
They kind of already did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an off kind of plot line for this season. There was like a little bit there with like the Ents and all that. But I don't think they're going to drop it because they're like, they specifically dropped like, oh, we need timber. After all, they're only trees. Right. Coy, mustache, like twirl. And it's like, we just like, I know I can write this show already. It's like, humans are going to go and start cutting down trees. They're going to break the promise to the Ent and the Entwife that they literally just made. And then they're going to get mad. And then they're going to, have to make another deal, and then the Ent and the Endwife are going to come and mess up all of the Kingsmen, and that's going to be that.
Right,
we're done.
Yeah, I think the faithful, as they maybe start escaping, I don't know when that's going to happen, but they'll escape there, and then the Kingsmen. I think you're right, but I don't think the Ents mess up the Kingsmen. I think the Kingsmen mess up the Entwives, and then that's why they're gone, maybe. Which is, granted, that's kind of if they go that way, that's kind of an interesting theory, because I haven't heard that. We know the Númenóreans ate up all the wood, and we know that the Entwives disappeared during the Second Age, so that is actually kind of interesting. Maybe that's why, but that's kind of a lesser theory. So maybe, but yeah, no, you're right. We don't even need to see that plot line because it's so evident that that's going to happen.
It's so obvious where the conflict is coming.
Yeah.
But also, it's obvious enough to where I think they are going to continue to make Theo a character, and presumably also Isildur, now that they've made them buddy cops without actually doing anything in the same scenes together.
Now, well, with Arondir now being with the other elves, I guess.
Dude, they needed him.
They did.
That plotline needed somebody.
They did, but my man teleported from the south to the north, and he was like, "I'm a part of this plot."
He died and came back. Arondir is the greatest. He can't be beaten.
Is Arondir Glorfindel, you think? Is that what they're trying to do? He was resurrected, came back?
Have they name dropped Glorfindel in this show?
No, but man, I'm surprised they didn't make Adar Glorfindel at this point. My name. It was Glorfindel once. Oh, I remember. Stab. What? Yeah. I'm happy that they didn't do that. Again, it kind of could have been cool to put somebody in that role of Adar, but at the same time, I'm just glad that they didn't mess up anything else.
It would be difficult. It would be a difficult sell, right?
Yeah.
It would be deep. In order to make it a character that we knew, it would have to be deep first stage, right?
Yeah.
So probably no rights, and so they were just like, "My name doesn't matter," and we're like, you don't matter, bro. You're about to get axed from this show.
Yep. So there it is. There's that last episode. For me, I mean, I don't know. I'm just so apathetic. I'm so glad that we have a break from the show. I'm so glad that we don't have to keep doing this week to week, because I'm just so tired. I'm tired, boss.
4 weeks ago, we were having fun.
Yeah.
We had one episode. That was fun.
It was fun. And even last week, it was kind of just fun to tear it apart, because I was like, but after that, I'm ready for a break. So I'm glad this is
last episode was almost insulting, but also the things that were happening on screen were things that were happening on screen. This was a phone episode for the gang. And it was the finale. Can you imagine?
Yeah, exactly.
This was I looked down and I realized I have my phone out, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Where this I didn't even notice that I pulled this out. Am I that disengaged right now?
Phone episode. I thought you meant a phone in, they phoned it in, but that's funny. It is true. It's like a phone in hand episode while you're watching. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Even last week it was...
Sometimes you need a show. Sometimes you just need a TV show where you can whip out the phone and not actually pay attention to the TV show, just have it on in the background. Yeah. But clearly, they're not trying to be that kind of show.
Right.
So.
Right. It's not. Yeah, exactly. It's trying to be the spectacle, and it's just not. And so last week, even I always have fun, even when things are bad and I'm upset with that it is upset or that it is bad. I'm happy going back and forth with you and just kind of breaking it down a little bit. But this one I'm just whatever, man. I'm so. Hopefully, War of the Rohirrim's better. This is my thought at this point.
I think it's going to feel better, if nothing else, because it'll be a
one-off.
Sit down in the theater, hanging out, watching it.
True.
Get out, discuss it. Maybe we'll be disappointed. I really hope not.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know.
But it's just a one-off thing. So, I would say in terms of overall rating, I'm putting this one at a 3 out of 10. I think. 3 out of 10. It's still.
Is that what you gave last episode?
Last episode, I gave a 1 or a 2. I was really just it doesn't. Right. I was at that point, it doesn't even matter. Could you make the argument for a 2? Sure. Could you make the argument for a 1? Sure. This one, I'm it really is not worth your time. If 5's kind of that bar, it's insulting at spots. Even the tie-ins to the deep lore. Again, the Beach of Mourning, which isn't a real place that's mentioned in the lore, but if it was, it would be in the east, not in the west. But okay. Like, stuff like that, I'm just like, ugh, whatever. This is just dumb. I'm just tired of it. So, 3 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a little bit more difficult because I think it's slightly better than the last 2 episodes. The last 2 episodes were insulting from like I can't believe you made this decision.
Sure.
And this episode was insulting from I can't believe you think I care about any of these like plot lines or stories or characters right now. Like you make it during slow-mo jump scene with the cool axe, and the axe is just made out of whatever to block it. I don't know. I guess technically Gandalf's elven crafted Glamdring presumably can block the Balrog sword, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. It's just so much of this episode felt really forced. It's like they almost forgot. This, like, oh, this is a finale. We need to make it so that we need to have it feel like they're giving messages to people, so that people realize it's a finale. But they didn't actually set up anything to be that learny. It's just a whole lot more about everybody making mistakes, and then Eregion died for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why they felt the need to have every character suddenly be a wise, like, sage when it comes to the goodness in the world and the friends that we made along the way. But, so I think it's probably like a 4 for me. I could see the 3.
Yeah.
I could see the 3 play. It's hard for me to care that much about hating it. And like I said last week, I almost always forget the rating that I give an episode afterwards. Whatever I said for the last 2 episodes, I know I said the same number. It's 1 more than that, but I want to make sure it's still less than 5 because of that one scale. So we may need to lower scores from the last couple episodes, but that's just kind of how it goes,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Ryan, thanks for joining me every week here and getting through this. I am glad that they at least dropped 3 episodes at once, because now at the end I'm like, it's only been 5 weeks, but thankfully it's come to an end, season 2. We'll talk about our overall thoughts in that live stream on Sunday, right, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please tune in for that. I'll get that live stream premiere up and running here soon. So we'll put our thoughts in there. But if I were to kind of give you a preview of my thoughts of the overall season, I would say probably just as insulting as last season, but still a little better, like a hair better than last season. Because episode 5 is the only reason why. But yeah, we'll get into it Sunday. I would just say it maybe upset me in some ways more than season 1, but I think it was still a little better. So yeah, we'll get into that then. Looking forward to it. And Ryan, again, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me, and I will see you soon, and we'll dole it out.
Yes, sir.
Sunday.
Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members for supporting us and continuing to support these reviews and the show overall, the podcast. Ed Patterson, Brian Hunley, Peter Sheppard, John Hume, Rhys Jenkins, Arthur, Merlin, Theodore, Andrew Carlisle, and Zoomi. Thank you to all of our patron members and YouTube members. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching, continuing to watch these reviews week after week. I'm excited to do that final live one here in a couple days. So, my friends, thank you all so much for joining us on this adventure. Until the next one.